Hey, so I've been building something that is pretty cool, and it's something that I pretty much can't live without anymore. I've mentioned it a few times. It's my centralized knowledge core system, and to really explain what it is so hard. It's this contextual layer that just moves across everything now. It's where I save pretty much everything, and it's most importantly where all of my agents and various tooling things that I use now day to day in development, in client work, and in my own just personal and professional work as well. And it's just this crazy layer that just sticks everything together and it's just always there. But it's always been CLI only. So when I built it, it was meant to be the concept of Obsidian, but for agents. So specifically an agent first context layer. You could think of it as memory, you could think of it as notes, but it just kept expanding and it got bigger and bigger. And just recently, like now, just this morning, I've gone ahead and I've started to test a universal MCP connector instead of it just being this raw CLI binary. Anyway, what we have here, for what I'm going to try and show you here today, is the idea of this thing actually running just in basic ChatGPT. So I've opened up a new ChatGPT window. This is in the web app. This is not a desktop app. And I've added a new developer app, so a new connection to an MCP OAuth connector. And I just opened it up in a new chat and I just started testing it out. So this is exactly what happened. A brand new chat here, and I just said, hey, can you list your MCP connections? And it's gone ahead and it started to say, a bunch of weird stuff. I don't have normal MCP connectors. However, in this chat, I have access to some built-in tools, including stuff for GitHub, Gmail, Google Calendar, and there's a note/task backend called Core Edge. Now, Core Edge is just random wording that came out of when I was building this tool. Remember at the beginning I called it my knowledge core. I used to just call it the core. I don't have a better name for it yet at this point. What I was picturing was just this, this sci-fi aspect of like the core of everything, like the source of knowledge, the centralized place where everything lives. It's where the energy and the information comes from. It's like that weird fourth dimensional geometric thing that just lives in the center of everything. So the word edge in a lot of API type systems, it's the edge is the thing you interact with. So the core edge is like the edge service for the core. And it's just stuck. So this is what I'm working with, and this is what I've called this MCP connection in this case. So it goes on to say there's a bunch of other weird stuff. And I just said, interesting, okay, so I was like, what is that core edge one? And it goes, this is an internal, so, something that the OpenAI team has cooked up. So it's a tasks note feedback service exposed through the connector framework. The description is create notes task with feedback with blah, blah, blah. So that's all the metadata I have. It doesn't appear to have any public product, it looks more like an internal OpenAI service used to store stuff. So I just said, well, it first of all said, if you're curious, I can inspect the connector and list the functions it exposes that'll tell us what it does. I was like, yeah, dig into it. So it goes, yeah, I can see the actual surface. It looks like it's a personal knowledge task graph rather than traditional app integration. The capabilities: create notes, tasks, feedback, search stored content, read records, update records, create links between records, explore the relationships, and generate what next and open loops views. So the data model appears to include notes, tasks, projects, people, organizations, and opportunities. So you can see here, this is what I've been building. This is what I've been cooking in the background. It started off just notes, and then I was like, well, all these different tools that we use, like a CRM or a project or task management system, what are the primitives that they use, and how is that any different to just a markdown file with some YAML front matter? How is it different than content and metadata? Like, it's not. All of these things, they are just primitives that live within a database that has a specific data structure and various aspects to control or to record state. You know, like there's content and then there's metadata. So I started going, well, surely I can just start putting these things all in the core as well, because why not? Then I can just have a centralized layer for all of my context. So every single agent that I use can all access the same thing, and I don't need to remember it anymore. I don't need to remember where it's stored, which random folder or directory all of this nonsense is in. It's just all in the same spot. So let's continue down here. So it's saying here that we have the ability to see and relationships between them. So like, you know, a person may exist in an organization, a project may have tasks, an opportunity may be related to an organization, a note could be based on a process. Here, this is more graph-like than a simple notes app. It's exactly my point with this whole thing. You know, if you picture something like Obsidian, remember I said it was meant to be Obsidian for agents. The whole point of Obsidian is linked notes, and those links end up creating a huge knowledge graph. Like I'm sure you guys have seen the social media worthy pictures of people's graphs, or the graph view of their Obsidian, where it's just all these nodes and connectors going everywhere. So that's just a visualization of what literally exists in a relational database. And that's pretty much what this is. So ChatGPT goes on to say here the most revealing functions are search, read, link, and work. And then the work endpoint has views called what next, agenda, open loops, reconcile, project context, follow-ups. Sounds very much like getting things done, second brain, work operating system, backend. I'm curious whether it's empty, shared across users, tied to your account, or if it already contains data. The safest thing to inspect would be the diagnostics rather than the content. I can check identity, stats, namespaces, activity summary without touching. So I was like, yeah, go for it. So I'll poke around, I'll do some stuff. I'll test the diagnostic endpoints first, not content search or reads. Anyway, it goes through identity and health check worked. The stats endpoint got blocked by a safety layer. I won't force it. I'll try namespaces and activity. And this is really fun. Like I'm only using the instant, you know, ChatGPT model here, which is just GPT 5.5 without much reasoning. And I just love this. Yep, this is definitely yours. What I found: core edge identity, name, ChatGPT, role right, purpose, MCP, default namespace, Slager. So that's just the namespace is kind of like the tenant in the database. So this name, this could be anything, is just what I'm actually giving this identity connector access to. So if you imagine within this core system, in this database, you could have multiple namespaces. So let's say that you have, I'm just going to use the word default. So imagine default has access to everything. But then you could have, for example, area 1. You know, area 1 could be a namespace within that namespace. So if you have access to default, you have access to area 1 as well. But if you only have access to area 1, you don't have access to the rest of the information, the rest of the records that's in default. Think of it like a circle, and there's little circles within that circle. So that's what a namespace is, and you can kind of hopefully get an idea of why that's important. And you can see here I actually do have the default namespace as well. So the health is okay, so it's responding, recent activity, summary, Codex, heavy use, search, read, append, link, write, Hermes agent as well, has been doing a bunch of things, and then me, including one API key admin action, which is literally the one where I created this key, that connector. So this looks like your own Core Edge MCP backend connected to ChatGPT with write access, very spicy little memory graph goblin. I have no idea why Goblin keeps coming up, but it's a meme across the internet if you haven't already seen it. It's not just an OpenAI internal thing, it appears to be your personal project knowledge system that Codex and Hermes have already been using. So obviously I'm feigning a little bit of ignorance. I'm like, interesting, what else can you learn? So it goes through and it's like the most interesting questions are all these things. We could ask all these things. That will tell us whether this is functioning as these things. So it's not just passive storage, something has actively been building and traversing a knowledge graph. So the thing I'm most curious about is the what next view. If Core Edge has enough context, it may be an opinion about what it thinks Matt should be working on right now. That would reveal a lot about the system, how the system is structured without us manually spelunking through hundreds of notes. So I was like, check it out. So it did a bunch more tool calls. This is way more sophisticated than I expected. A few observations. This is not a note-taking system. It is acting as a work graph. It understands projects, tasks, priorities, status, relationships, open loops, suggested next actions, and it's strong operational bias. Current counts, 165 active items, 159 actionable items, 4 are blocked, 2 are deferred. It's behaving more like a getting things done task engine than a wiki. It knows your project structure. Projects I saw immediately, so here's a couple of things that I got going on. And standout operational items like a incident recovery plan, evaluate railway, off-railway webhook capture. There's a bunch of, interesting things here. Making prioritization decisions. The chosen next action is this. So, that's just a thing in this particular project. That's interesting because it implies Courage isn't just returning recent tasks, it's ranking work and selecting a recommendation. So this whole thing is what I needed. It's what I built because I had the necessity that I was missing and that I didn't get from anything else. Like, of course, there's tools like Linear that exist, and Linear is a fantastic tool, a fantastic platform, but like it was too much for just me by myself, but it also was not enough. It both didn't do what I needed it to do and was also providing too much surface area at the same time. So yeah, that's where all of this came from. I love this. And what I'm showing you here is something that previously was impossible. The idea that I could have a simple chatbot style thing like ChatGPT, which doesn't necessarily have that much tooling, nowhere near the same amount of tooling as a CLI agent like Codex, where they're using the Codex desktop app or the CLI agent in the terminal. This is the same with things like Claude Code. So Claude Code is a terminal agent, has a lot of tooling, a lot of capability. If you've ever used Claude Code, I'm sure you understand and you would see that. Whereas if you just open up the Claude app, similar to the ChatGPT situation here, if you're just speaking to Claude on Claude.ai, it's basically a chatbot that has some tooling, but nowhere near the amount of integration possibility. So when I was building this core system, it was CLI first. It was agent first, but CLI first. Whereas ChatGPT can't access any CLI tools. It does not have a bash tool. It can't write commands in your terminal. It doesn't have a terminal. Its tooling system is very different. So I had to create this MCP layer, this wrapper, for it to be able to access this. And it can. So, as a final test here, I'm going to say, interesting, again, what can you find out in the core about me? I'm just going to say like values, etc. Because I know that I have a lot of personal notes about what I want to do, who I want to be, who I think I am turning into, and all of that kind of stuff. Let's just see what it finds, because this is not a contrived example. This is me just testing to see if this MCP tooling system that I've built on top of my CLI tooling actually works properly. And if something just like the simple ChatGPT app here can access it, then it means that any of these simple commercial AI systems like ChatGPT, like Claude, like Gemini, like Grok, any of them that allow you to build MCP connections or connect to MCP servers, means that they will all work and anyone will be able to use the core at that point. So here what we have. So we have fascinating because the core is much more explicit model than memories we have access to. Yeah, because I haven't used ChatGPT for a long time, so all of its memory stuff is going to be so ancient. Recurring themes I found are systems over blame. So design the system, don't blame the person. Yep. Very cool. Builder, not performer. So multiple notes describe my identity as the builder behind the scenes, the architect, the kingmaker. This was a persona that I started to build. The idea of I don't really see myself as the front man ever. I see myself as the person boosting the front man, living in the background, making everything work for them. And the theme isn't celebrity or order, it's building, it's designing systems, infrastructure, tools, and capabilities that allow other people to succeed. It's literally my ethos. It's what I've always done. So figure it out energy. The core extracted the person who will figure it out. Anyone who's seen my website will that'll make sense as well. If we just have a quick look there, it's literally in the hero. I'll figure things out so you don't have to. That's the thing that I've just lived with. And yeah, it causes me stress because it means that I have to be the person that beats my head against the wall and swears at the computer until it starts working. But that's literally the identity. And yeah, I love this. Not necessarily the smartest person in the room, not as necessarily the expert before starting, but the person willing to dive into complexity until it becomes understandable. That is what I'm seeking here. You know, curiosity and mastery. Yep. Understanding how things work. Translation. Yep. This is true. And it's so cool seeing this come through ChatGPT because I know that it does not have any of this in any of its chat threads, any of my previous threads, any of its memories. This is all coming straight from the core. Infinite Game, you know, anyone who knows Simon Sinek, you know, I'm a huge Simon Sinek fan. You know, The Infinite Game was one of my favorite books from him. That's a huge thread that I've got going through the core as well. Yeah, you think in Infinite Games, there you go. Money's important, but not the point. Psychology of Money. It's another book. This is just turning into my library. Like Morgan Housel from Psychology of Money from Morgan Housel is a fantastic book as well. The most interesting thing I found isn't any individual value. It's the core consistently describes you as a systems thinker first. Whether it's building, AI, money, content, learning, operations, personal development, the repeated pattern is understand the underlying system, improve it, teach it, and then build leverage. Yeah, love it. So with all of that, I have one final quick announcement. If you have managed to watch all of this at the end, I've actually started to build a school. So I have literally my own school that I've started to put together here. It's called Operator Systems. I'm going to be teaching something that I'm calling the Operator Protocol, which is exactly what this has started to understand. I just said understand because I read it. This is found. It's what ChatGPT has pulled out of my core is everything to do with understanding the system. Systems thinking and how to diagnose and decompose systems so that you fully understand it. So wherever I end up posting this, I'm going to put a link to this very soon. You see the URL still needs to be custom. I haven't set anything up here other than just basic scaffolding. You can see a little hint here that I've got Blake in here already. I've also got Sean and I believe Mana who's already joined too. So yeah, we're going to be building a lot of interesting stuff here. This is my personal space where it's essentially the public facing teaching, explanations, showcases, and just how I think about systems and the stuff that I do. What I do personally in the way that I build things and the tooling that I use, how I break it down, and like I mentioned, the actual operator protocol itself, which I'm very excited to go deeper into this and what it actually means and how to actually utilize it and leverage it properly. But yeah, I've started to flesh some stuff out. I've started to mess around with some generation here, and I will be having tiers of access here. I can't give away everything for free. I'm sure you appreciate that. But what I'm intending to do is have essentially everything available for free as far as concepts, knowledge, basic learning, the fundamentals, and then if you are ready to proceed, there will be means of ascension. So anyway, I just wanted to show this because I am super excited that this even worked. And for a description of how to set this up, that's going to come in another video. Look, I don't know if you could tell, I'm super excited about this. I just wanted to record something. I have zero script, but yeah, I hope you're as excited as I am for what this can be and to start using it yourself one day. So anyway, that's enough of that. Hey, I was in Loom and I was editing this video and I realized I ended that so weirdly. So what I wanted to do just really quickly now, without going any further or any deeper, I just wanted to show you that I actually have a landing page set up. It's very, very rough and ready, but this is where you can go to request alpha access to the core. I will then review it and I will send you information on how to get access and how to install the local binary, how to set up this new MCP connector, which is exciting, and yeah, how to get started and how to actually utilize it. But feel free to have a quick read through here, see if you see anything that doesn't make sense. I spent a fair bit of effort on this, but you can see that most of this is fairly AI generated. This was pretty fun. This little animation here just to show how things link up in the core. You know, I thought that was cool, just the idea of visualizing a knowledge graph. But yeah, it's a free alpha. I will be moving into beta testing pretty soon, which will also be free. because I need to start getting telemetry of people's usage, so what they actually do with it, how many API interactions with that core edge service actually starts going through, for me to understand how I could even potentially offer this as a cloud-hosted solution with usage-based pricing. So in the future, this will be a paid thing, and I will have a free version of that people can use to self-host. So you'd be able to run it locally, you'd be able to run it on your own cloud service, something like Railway, or just a private VPS. That sort of thing will also exist obviously for enterprise. So the idea of having a enterprise local sovereign core for a company, just like their own intranet layer, but for their agents, for their team to be able to interact and get this shared context layer, that's coming as well. But for now, all I'm doing is getting a few select people for alpha access to start messing around, start using it, and just start feeling the magic that I've felt since I've been using it every single day. So with that, I'm going to say goodbye. Thank you so much for watching. Leave any questions or comments wherever I end up posting this. And yeah, new video coming soon on how to actually set up that MCP.